Chapter 9. Visitor. I am here to call on Galen Fredano. He will be expecting me, the exaggeratedly tall, sinewy man said disdainfully to the clerk. The suspicious front desk manager furrowed his brow in an equally dismissive tone, asked, "And you are?" "Mr. White." The manager made a petulant gesture with his hand and sniffed, frustrated that he would not be able to throw this clearly egotistical man out onto the street corner. "You will find them upstairs, room 12. I trust you can find your way," he sneered. Mr. White did not respond, but instead made a dramatic turn, his long black cloak sweeping in a graceful motion about his long legs. He drifted up the stairs in such an unearthly manner that the clerk wondered if perhaps the visitor was floating. His feet were obscured by the gentle waving of his floor-length tunic he wore, and he exuded a strange and, to the manager, distasteful presence. He had a terribly snake-like, thin beard, which he had tied off in 3 places. He also had a long, graceful mane of black, with a brilliant white shock of hair that ran down one side of his head. "Bah!" the clerk muttered to himself. "Sorcerers. They're all alike, arrogant bastards." He leaned over his ledger and resumed his calculations. Ruala was in and out of consciousness when Galen replied to the knock at the door. There were pieces of the conversation that drifted into her mind, but most of it was obscured by deafening, rushing noises, hallucinations, and pain. "Whose?" she heard Galen's voice. "It is I, and come for... have you..." replied a distantly familiar voice. "Yes, but we left time ago here, but very poorly." She strained to hear more, but was by and large unsuccessful. "Have you brought... did she..." the new voice slyly inquired. She heard Galen sigh. "Yes, that was... I knew. I took... here." There was a slow, considered silence. "Did you think... too late?" "You care. I only sent... retrieve... your... here is done. Nevertheless, I believe I can... Give it here, boy," Galen moaned softly. "The only way? Would you care... your chances elsewhere?" Another long silence. "No. Suppose not." The mysterious visitor hovered close over Ruala. She could not see him, but she could feel his ominous presence above her. She heard a strange, low chanting, and began to feel a distant tugging. She opened her eyes and saw disembodied, dark faces all around her, grinning and showing huge, slavering teeth and deep, impenetrable eyes. They spun and twisted sickeningly in her view. She screamed and tried to move, but was prevented by some confederation of forces outside of her control. The faces spun nauseatingly and drifted in and out of her vision, blurring together, laughing wickedly. Galen felt desperately helpless as the stricken woman he had come to care for wailed and spewed angry gibberish. She shook the bed as might a thing possessed, writhing and gnashing her teeth, frustrated by Mr. White's magical barriers. Floating above her, perhaps 2 feet in midair, the Golden Empress spun slowly, persistently, glowing softly, flickering like a subdued but living candle. The flower in the center turned with an eerie rhythm, its slow procession a mechanical clockwork. Outside of that, the room was chaos. Mr. White was sweating with concentration, his waxy cheeks sunken in blue. He was focused utterly on the mad girl into whom he was pouring all of his effort. Galen wrung his hands like a nursemaid and paced to and fro, pausing only to shoo away the irritated desk clerk who had received 2 complaints of noise already. "You cannot come in now," he told the manager. "We are performing an exorcism. It'll be over soon, I can assure you." The irritated clerk bristled. "You did not tell me that she was possessed. I will have to charge you extra, and a large fee if there is ectoplasm or blood to be scrubbed out. We will have no more of your funny business," said the angry matriarch. He pounded on the door to clarify his point. "If this is not finished soon, I shall be forced to evict you." He stalked away. Galen turned his deeply concentrated eyes to the sorcerer by Ruala's bedside. There was a large blue halo of energy around them, and when Galen passed in and out of it, he felt horribly cold. There was also a stream, little more than a trickle really, of golden light, connecting the levitating Empress stone and Ruala's breastbone. It seemed that the yellow light was slowly seeping out of her, filling the amber-like stone and increasing the intensity of its glow. Then there was no more screaming or struggling. A sudden gust of calm came over her, and she lay still, submissive, but sadly troubled-looking, as Mr. White finished his work, and Galen chewed furiously at his nails. After a time, Mr. White stood up. He looked horrible, and Galen asked if he was all right. Yes, I am perfectly well, boy. It is unwise to assume that a man is weak because he is exhausted, especially if he is in possession of powerful magic. You would do well to learn this and save yourself great pain by underestimating the wrong man. I simply require a short period of recuperation." Galen raised his hand as though he were about to speak, but Mr. White dismissed Galen's thought before he spoke with an annoyed hand wave. "And what about the girl? She will be fine. Let her rest. I will call on you when I need you. Both of you." He took the now vibrantly shining stone and stuck it in a small leather pouch, which he pocketed. "Here is your wage." Coins changed hands, and Galen looked sadly to the floor, sickened by his own actions, as he accepted the money. "How long until I should expect to hear from you?" he asked. "Not long. I have another prospect in the south. I will need multiple hands for this job, so it is convenient that we have managed to replace Svern so soon." He chuckled. "Well, I will be off now. Take care of her. She is as valuable as you, perhaps even more so." The dashing young man looked drawn and tired when he shut the door after his employer, and sat on the other unoccupied bed, staring at his feet. Finally he heard Ruala stir, and he grabbed a flask that sat by a large jug of water. He filled it, brought her the cup, and kneeled, tipping it gently towards her mouth. She drank and fell back, sighing. "Galen, is that you?" He set the cup to the side and took her hand. "Yes, I'm here. How are you?" He looked terribly worried, and Ruala grinned wryly. "I believe I have lived through finer moments, but I am well enough now. You seem very worried. Was I so badly off?" Galen grimaced crookedly and shook his head of soft curls. "I don't know, but I have seen what happens to people when they are overcome with their visions and are not cared for. It is not something I wanted to see again." "I'm glad that I did not have to put you through that, you poor dear," she chided merrily. "But truly, thank you for your concern. Whatever happened seemed to lift a heavy cloud that lay upon me." Galen sighed and set his forehead down onto the back of her hand, and she put her other palm on top of his head as he crouched there with her. He appeared to be both overcome and relieved. His concern was greater than that which Ruala was accustomed to, and she was very touched. She summoned her strength and sat up. She was exhausted, spent both mentally and physically, but she still felt compelled to comfort the man. He still knelt on the floor in a position of submission before her. His head was still upon the one of her hands, with the other atop it. Ruala leaned down and gently placed her mouth on the top of his skull. Breathing in, she could smell the road on his hair, the scents of plants and dust and rain. She whispered into his ear, "It will be all right, Galen. I am sorry that I worried you. It was not my intention or desire to bring you discomfort, but thank you so much for helping me." He turned his face up to hers, and she saw clearly that he had tears in his eyes. A claw reached out and grabbed her heart, squeezed hard, and would not let go. "Oh, Galen," she exclaimed, and leaned over, kissing him fiercely. He put his hands on her shoulders and ran them up her back, into her hair, and then pulled himself free, despite his intense desires to the contrary. No, you don't understand. You don't. It is that I am sorry, beautiful Ruala. I have been awful. I am so very, very sorry, but I did not know what else to do. I have doomed you, Ruala. I have enslaved you. I have lied horribly to you. I fear that neither you nor I shall ever be free again." He pleaded with her eyes, and she stiffened, pulling back from him. "What do you mean?" "You are his slave, Ruala. He will kill you in an instant if you do not obey him." It all came pouring out then, everything he had neglected to tell her previously. And as Galen spoke, Ruala grew paler, more drawn, until she sat, legs pulled to her chest, in the overstuffed chair by the window. "What have you done to me?" She looked at him with despair and rage, and a cold blue veil fell between them then, silencing them both.